Tony, based on what you were saying, I imagine there's huge implications in terms of organizational culture. You mentioned an innovative culture, but I'm also thinking in terms of leadership, compensation, some of the tools that the organization might supply to an individual who is looking for different kinds of motivation. Does your assessment tools also have implications for, I would call it, the environment that the team and the organization is in? Do you also speak to that?
Absolutely, James. The reason is a lot of team development, leadership, training programs, they focus on, let's just focus on the teams. When you look at teams and they are given team training, they go out of the organization and they go through either some team bonding exercises in nature, or if they, if they are taught how to do decision making or how to design a team, it is not really embedded in the work context. What I do and what we do really is that we look at teams in their work context. So it's very relevant to them. We assess their experience of teamwork within that work context they're in. And in that assessment, we assess the actual team experience they have or the quality of engagement they have, and also the desired engagement they would like to have. So based on scientific change theories, this is more like assessing the state one of a team that aligns with chaos or complexity theories. And once we assess the state one of the team in their work context, we can actually coach them toward their desired state. And when they are moved into the desired state, we do a time two assessment to see where they have moved. Now, in terms of chaos and complexity theory, we cannot really see what state two is going to be until we assess them at state two in terms of the actual and desired. And that's what's exciting about working with teams in their work context. Teams in their work context deal with a lot of variables, a lot of forces that impact them. And to be able to see the state one of a team and then to coach them and to assess them in state two, you would uncover not only how the team is evolving, but also what forces might be shifting the team as well at the larger level, systems level. And because we focus on the work context of a team, what we try to do is to help them realize that teams are actually engines that drive businesses. They are the force that bring innovations to life, and they are a central form of organizing of all work relationships. So basically what we do is when we help a team develop using our coaching model, we not only focus on the team, but also how the team can affect the larger system. So a really good team really influences the organization or the higher system, and not just getting things done as dictated to them or told that they should complete this task, but they would rather want to influence the organization itself. So that's what, in terms of implications for organizations. Not only do we focus on the teams, but we also focus on how the teams can influence the organization or the larger system in ways that would help shape the organizations moving forward, especially in such a volatile environment where, even if you ask a lot of CEOs now, a five-year strategic plan is difficult to ascertain because things are changing so quickly. As a result, it's also good for us at the team level to know how to contribute to those shifts as they go along. So that's the team level assessment, and that's why we also focus on innovation and execution, because it's not just about helping a team develop better quality of engagement, but also to help them innovate and execute and contribute to the organization.
So, Tony, this description that you have in terms of engagement and contribution, it sounds as if that teams fall somewhere along a spectrum of engagement and contribution to the organization. Can you just give us a sense of what the team is like, or its profile at the lowest level of capability, and what it looks like at the highest level of capability?
I think that's an excellent question. When you look at the spectrum in terms of how we are looking at a team, at the lowest end, if you will, is the quality of the engagement. And the quality of the engagement can fall into four different major dimensions based on our research. One is the non-task dimension, interactions around that. The task dimensions, the power and influence dimensions, and the openness dimension. So whenever we do this work with organizations and we ask people to talk about a time when they were really working in a team that was great and exciting, and when they're working with a team that's not so exciting and they probably don't want to work with that team ever again, what ends up showing up when you ask them to identify the characteristics, they will still fall into those four major dimensions. So when you look at teams at the lower level, you're helping them develop better non-task interactions, which is more the interpersonal relationships, individuality, whether they are in a team, and whether they listen effectively. And then there's a task aspect, which is, do they plan when they have meetings, do they have an agenda, a plan in terms of how to get a task done, very much in terms of project management tools that we are very familiar with, and also whether they actually get things done, and if they understand the purpose of why their team exists in the organization. So those are sort of the lower level of the spectrum, if you will. Toward the sort of midpoint level is when we look at the ability of the team to influence the organization. And what I mean by that is, being an engineer in the past, we are taught to be team leaders as folks who would drive the team to do what they're supposed to do, and we do the project management tools in order to make sure the task gets done. In my research, what is really fascinating and counterintuitive is that really good team leaders create the environment and groom the team to be able to influence and affect the task and not just complete it. So that's a whole different take on what team leadership really means. So team leadership is not, team leaders are not someone who would tell you, okay, we have our meeting on Monday morning, how are things going, and who's, are there any delays or whatever in terms of project management. It's not. It's developing and grooming team members to come to the point where they are comfortable and confident enough to say to the team leader, you know what, although we are given this task, this may be a much better way to do it, and let's push that and see what happens. And that is taking into account the organizational need and not just a task. So that's the midpoint. And then toward the higher end of the spectrum is when teams have the ability to look at ideas, shape ideas in ways that they collapse and shape and mold ideas into possibilities. And these possibilities will then transfer into more new innovative ideas that could help the organization, even if the organization is not seeing that yet. And I think that's the highest level of team effectiveness in an organization. So if I were to revisit the spectrum, we're looking at helping a team evolve and get better in its quality of engagement based on the four dimensions. Moving into the level where teams start realizing that effective teams are those that actually influence the organization and not just get things done. And then finally, the higher level of team development is where teams are aware that they can have ideas and possibilities that have not been talked about or not even discussed yet to help influence the organization move to the next level that is probably not even in the vision. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. I like this idea of creating possibilities for the organizations as we look into an evolving environment organizations that find themselves in. It seems that the ability to create possibilities suggests to me that the ability to help shape our future. Tony, as we close our podcast for today, do you have any takeaways for either our colleagues in the university or our colleagues in practitioner who are looking to implement such ideas?
Absolutely. I think as researchers, well, frankly, in organizational behavior and business and in management, both in research and practice, researchers are more now scholar practitioners or engaged scholars. So there's a blend of both research and practice. From a research standpoint, I would say that when we are developing any kind of assessment, it is really critical that we use measurement theory, concepts of evaluations, and testing an instrument with all the rigor and standards of rigor around it to ensure that what we are going to be putting out as an assessment is valid, robust, and tested across the world, which is what we did. It is really good to do that as a scholar, so that when you are actually bringing your instruments or your ideas out into the world, it's meaningful and relevant and timely. And I think that would be a focus of academics looking at developing instruments to help organizations. From the practitioner point of view, it really boils down to, so what can we do with this? And so the way I'm looking at what we do is, when we do training programs for individuals and teams, we should not dissect and separate individual, interpersonal, and team level training. They should all be interrelated, looking at helping an individual develop more self-awareness, which is a very strong push in a lot of training programs, but it's not so strong a push in terms of other awareness. And so the combination of self and other awareness, when they're engaging in the work environment, does promote a far better, healthy interaction space in the environment context. So developing those skills to have a high level of self-awareness and with that, a high level of other awareness would help your team members and your employees not just look at themselves, but rather how they're interacting with others. At the same time, once that interpersonal level awareness is reached, it's really good to move on to the team level, because ultimately, from a practitioner standpoint, everything works, everything moves at the team level. Most of the engagement in organizations happen at the team level. And so if you shift the capacity of a team, you're basically overall, all the teams that are working in the organization get shifted to a much higher level engagement type team. What you essentially is doing is shifting the entire organization, but looking at the right place, which is where teams are, because teams, every organizations are based on a team structure from the board all the way down to ad hoc teams. Teams are everywhere now. And if we start focusing on looking at developing teams in a way that you can actually measure where they are now, coach them, and measure them again to see where they are then at the new state, is really helpful, not just from a organizational leadership standpoint, from a consulting standpoint. And that way, consultants can have meaningful results for the organization, even if it be from training, interpersonal, individual, and teams, but where it's relevant to the work context. And I think that's the most significant takeaway. I think that practitioners who want to realize that most training, if it's not related to the actual work context, it's difficult to really develop new skills and apply new skills unless it's really linked and taken from the work context. Am I making sense to those two aspects?
Absolutely. I can understand that sense of tailoring it to what's going on in the work environment. So I want to thank you, Tony. We've been speaking today with Tony Lingham of Anatak University. And that's the end of our podcast. Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you, James, for taking time to speak with me.
Okay.